Morning. I'm back at Les Lande for a 36-hour session. I popped down last night and put a little bit of bait on my spots. I got down first light this morning. Just popped 2 single hook baits out on those spots. Not seen anything yet, so we'll see how we get on. That's a better fish. Lovely hook hold there. With blowback rig with a couple of, there's a tiger, amazing, a little pop up there. There we are, just over 20 pounds, lovely common. Very fat belly, just ready, coming up for spawning I reckon. We've got to go in the next week or so I think with this weather that we've been having. So here's the successful rig. Once again, length about 3 foot long, of lead core to a lead clip and a lead with a quick change clip. This is 30-pound Corda camo, stripped back the last inch or so with a little weight there, and a simple blowback rig. That's a Corda curved shank, size 4 with a kicker on it. I put the kickers on in reverse to the conventional way. I feel that opens the gape out a little bit more than the normal way with this style of rig. And then on there we've got a tiger, a piece of maize and a pop-up. Tigers and maize are part of the particle mix I use, and the pop-up is a little sight thing. Once again, even though that fish was well hooked, the hook point has been burred over. There was quite a lot of feeding on that spot last night. I had an 11 pounder this morning in the dark, which I put straight back, and I put a fresh rig on there, and that's blunt already. So I'm not really sure whether it's just the rocky bottom, the hook getting moved around. I think I was getting problems with eels yesterday. I wound one of the rigs in off this spot, and it was missing a boilie on a snowman rig, which is why I've moved to the harder particles, which I don't think could get the attention of the eels. So although this isn't a pop-up rig as such, I've still got the weight on there, because as it gets sucked up into the carp's mouth, as you see, it holds the hook link in a downward position and presents the point of the claw into the bottom lip. And as you saw, that gave me a really good hook hold there. Okay, we'll get another one of those back out on the spot. Alright, we'll have a little look through my rig box. I know some of you are interested to know what's in here and what circumstances I'll use it, so I'll get some of these little bad boys out and I'll show you what I use in different circumstances. So first of all, we've got your good old-fashioned hinge stiffy. So there's about 9 inches of a coated braid here. It doesn't really matter which one. And with a figure of 8 loop at each end, blob of putty to balance it, size 11 ring swivel. This is a corder mouth trap. Try and make these as short as I can, usually about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, tied with a little loop and a ring swivel. I usually use a couple of 10mm baits, pop-ups, tied on with dental floss and then blobbed on. That's a size 4 quarter choddy hook, and that's the rig that I had the 11 pounder on last night. It took a while to go. I had a lot of feeding over that yesterday evening with no bites, over about 8 spots of particle. There's a lot of fizzing going on it and up until dark, but it didn't go till 4 o'clock in the morning. I've been experimenting with this in these circumstances because I was getting trouble with eels with anything with a normal hook bait on it, and I thought putting you know, a bright pop-up and fruity flavours would probably avoid the eels, but if they're feeding hard on the bottom, which they were fizzing on the particle, they were possibly missing this until all the particle had gone. But hey, caught me a fish. The other reason why I like this is, as you've seen, I've been getting a lot of trouble with bird over hooks. Even just winding them in, you feel it catch on the bottom and bring in a bird over hook. And I just thought with a pop up a bit off the bottom and a beaked point like this, but to be fair, I've still managed to wind in a couple of bird over hooks. And then we move move on to these Ronnie or spinner rigs. There's two versions here, so both of them on about 9 inches of quarter boom with a figure of 8 knot at one end, and under there that's actually crimped rather than a figure of 8 knot, with a bit of putty to counterbalance there. We have a size 11 quick change swivel into the eye of the hook, and I forgot what they're called, pieces, tubing over there to hold it in place, a micro swivel on the hook with a little ESP bead to stop it. Now that was on a size 4 quarter curve, and as you've noticed in the last couple of videos, I've lost a couple of fish on this. I found that size 4 is usually the smallest hook that you can actually go to with this rig. A size 6, that gape is just too small and you lose a lot of fish on it. But I've been doing all right, especially in France, with this, with a size 4. So again, I changed the style, so this is the same rig except with a quarter crank on it instead, but I still managed to lose a fish on that last week, so I've decided to move away from these spinner rigs, as effective as they have been for me in the past. I showed you the blowback rig that I've used very successfully over the years. I tend to use that with a snowman, usually over silt, but you know, it's just as effective on a hard bottom. I like it over silt. It was my go-to rig in the Meres, and certainly at Brittany Lakes last few years when I was fishing there into silt. That was a very effective rig. And then for a bottom bait, again, stripped back coated braid, about an inch stripped back, onto a curve. This is a fox curve hook. It's slightly more aggressive than the quarter one. You see the point is directly in line with the eye, and then the hair wrapped around the shank of the hook with a piece of rig tubing pushed right up to the bend of the hook, and then this would be fished with a bottom bait. Cannot fish this with any buoyancy in the bait at all. The effect that you're trying to get is for the bait to hang down in the fish's mouth like that and pull the bottom of the hook down. If you start using anything with buoyancy, it starts pulling it like this with the point facing upwards, and you get hook holds in the top lip and hook pulls. But for a bottom bait, for say, 3 pieces of maize or something like that, or a single match the hatch boilie, that's a really effective rig. Another bottom bait rig, similar idea. I like to fish these nice and short as well. If I was fishing into silt, I'd fish them longer, but again, a couple of little bits of weight to hold it down. A little kicker, that's what they were called, a little kicker. This is a size 4 quarter wide gape. Again, a bit of rig tubing pushed right round to the bend. Short hair for say a single boilie or a piece of maize, and again this will turn over in the hand like that. Again, one for bottom baits. Don't start using any buoyancy on that, otherwise it turns upside down. So those are my usual go-to rigs. I've got a couple of others out here. These are if I'm fishing solid PVA bags, so these are really short and they'd be fished in conjunction with an inline lead rather than a lead clip. So this would be my pop-up presentation. So again, a size 4 cord, a shoddy hook with a knotless knot and a loop tied into it with a ring for a pop-up, and a very, very short extension, and then that's fished with a that's tied directly to very short length of supple braid. So in your PVA bag it will sit like that over the top of your little pile of pellets. And that's a pop-up in a PVA bag, and then just a short supple version of the bottom bait rig. So those are my go-to rigs really. Nothing fancy or particularly clever. All been very successful in their time if you use them in the appropriate way. So today's been very quiet. I got down here first light about 4:30, 5 o'clock this morning. Put a couple of rods out on areas I'd put bait in the night before, hoping to get a quick bite, and nothing happened. About 8 o'clock the fish seemed to come up on the surface. So groups of sort of 4 or 5 of them cruising around on the top, looking like they might be up for a floater. So I wound in, I went home, which is only just round the corner, and got my floater stuff and a box of mixers, and they proceeded to ignore pretty much everything I put out. I saw ET, which I caught last week, took about five mixers in quick succession, and then ignored everything else, and that was the sum total of the activity yesterday afternoon. It was a hot, relatively still day, and absolutely nothing happened. So yesterday evening, as I said, it had been a pretty dead day all round, hot, still conditions, bright sunshine. I put about 10 spods out on left hand spot about 5 o'clock in the evening, and the last hour before it got dark that started fizzing up like mad, but I didn't get a run off it. I was fishing because of the irritation with eels, and having lost wound in without a hook bait on one of the bottom rigs that I'd been fishing over the particle. I decided to put a little hinge stiff rig over the particle, and I've caught quite well on hinge stiff rigs over particle here before, but nothing happened that evening. As it was getting dark, they were still fizzing over the bait, and nothing happened. And during the night, my right hand rod close in, I think, was probably being eeled, even though it was on again a hinge stiff rig with a couple of little 10mm fruity pop-ups. Every hour or so I was getting a little burst of beeps, and it was dropping back a bit. One of them dropped back right down to the floor, and I went down and picked it up, and there was nothing there. And that kept me up most of the night. I eventually got to sleep about 2:30, and then I was woken up by the left hand rod on the spot that had been fizzing, with a decent run, but it was a little mirror about 11 pounds, and I put it straight back. It was too dark to do any footage of it, and it was only a small fish anyway. And I've seen absolutely nothing this morning until about 10:30, and you can almost write this every time I go fishing. I'm a big fan of Popmaster on Ken Bruce on Greatest Hits Radio now, and I always listen to that when I'm fishing, and I can almost guarantee that I'm going to get a run halfway through it. And yet this morning, halfway through the second round of Popmaster, off it goes, and that was the nice just over £20, about £20 8-ounce common that you saw just then. So that's where we're up to. So it's about 11:30 now. I'm going to give it another couple of hours, and then after lunch I think I'll head off home. Well, that's about it for this session. Just the rods to pack away now. 2 fish, not bad. That's about par for this lake at the moment. So see you again sometime.